What's going on, everyone? ODC here, and I'm back with another action figure review. This is actually more of an overview, as we have all of the characters now from Halo Reach in this Halo Spartan collection kind of overview of the Halo Reach team. We've got each member here from Carter to Kat to George to Emile to June to the good old Noble Six. Love the game. It's one of my favorite Halo games. Some people either love it or some people just are like, it's kind of meh. But personally, I like the game itself. I've played it multiple times, and every time I play it, it's just as fun. I don't know. I haven't really talked too much about this line, and I feel like it's a toy line that should be talked about, obviously for its positives and its negatives. I don't know. I'll kind of go through each figure, and we'll just kind of do like a big overview of, I'll just call it the Halo Reach overview. So, Emile, starting off first, he was one of the first figures I think I got from the Spartan collection besides Master Chief. I want to say the Wave 2 Master Chief was the first one I got, and then I saw him at GameStop. I grabbed him. I always liked Emile's look. I think he looks pretty cool. Don't have too many issues with the paint deco or anything like that. There's a lot of plastic used as opposed to tons and tons of paint detail. But where there is paint detail, it is very welcomed. Bring him in here. Let's just get his arm down here. You can see that there's a lot of, I don't know, they just kind of feel fun as far as figures go. Like the bodies do feel bulky and big and bruising, and I don't know, they feel like a handful. That's the good. That's a point on the good notch. I want to say, as far as some things go with not just Emile but the figures themselves, there are like weird joints, like where their arms will be real loose or whatever, but he was a part of the earlier waves that were either really nicely tight jointed, or it would be very loose. So I got a nicely tight jointed Emile, so I'm very pleased with that. Certain features to talk about with a lot of these figures is the weapon storage capability. I want to say it was a really good idea to have, but it wasn't executed as well. The pegs on the sides of the legs, these little portions can pop out and they can flip around, and you'll see the peg sticking out. If you want to store the pistol, you can just kind of pop that out, and that looks ugly if you obviously lose this portion. But you peg that in, and it doesn't, I want to say on this side, it doesn't always stay out as well. But like I said, they kind of took ideas from like McFarlane, where they had the peg sticking out permanently, and they would either snap off because McFarlane used a harder plastic, or they wouldn't peg in as well. These peg in very nicely. I want to say on the earlier waves. I'll get to some of the later waves in a second, but here it sits in nicely, but just try not to tap it or bump it, because then this happens constantly. This whole piece will fall out constantly on his side, and then you're either missing that whole piece with the pistol, or you're missing just the pistol and you don't know where the hell it went. So for the most part, what I try to do is with these, as much as I'd love to see them holding all their stuff, they can't really do it. Realistically, they can't do it, especially if you're playing with these figures. Even the peg on the back of him, you can take that out. It just plugs in right there into his back, and it there's the peg sticking out, and you want to just kind of plug that back in here on the opposite end so the plug is sticking outward, and then you can put the pistol on his back if you so choose. Now it can sit there. It sits a little bit stiffer on the back than it does the leg, just because it's a tighter fitment for that peg piece. But there are chances of him falling over and then it's popping off, and then the gun goes who knows where. And it does look a little bit awkward with just the pistol kind of floating there. So what I just tend to do is I kind of put the pistols in a bag, and I just kind of try to enjoy them with their main rifles, or in Emile's case, his shotgun. His kukri knife, it does come out of the sheath, and it's very hard to get out. It's a very tight sheath. He does come with tons of extra hands. I'm not going to get into all the 10,000 hands, but as you can see here, there's a quality control concern right here. You can see this is like dangling on that peg, and it's real loose, and it's wobbling. And you can see the gapping between the pegs, or the peg piece, and where the hand is marched in, the arm. He can't hold the kukri knife with these hands. They're kind of like gripping hands. It's not a very tight grip, and it looks to be like the handle for the kukri knife is kind of small for his hand. It like just fits barely, but when you compare it to the size of the hand, like you can see how small that is. So I tend not to use this either. I tend to just kind of have him store it and imagine that he's pulling it out because it also does flex the plastic quite a bit. You'll notice some gap issues here in the arms with Emile. Right there. I just kind of pushed that in, and then over here as well. So this was kind of the issue with the first two waves. I want to say wave 1 was much worse than wave 2, but there are some issues with these figures, and that's an unfortunate thing because I love the sculpts of them. They feel fun. Like I said, they feel like fun action figures just by looking at them. And they still do look pretty damn accurate as far as their aesthetic goes. I love all of the kind of grenades he's got right here on the front, and that's just his character design, but also the smoke grenades over here, and then 2 more grenades in the center. And then obviously he took his kukri knife to his mask and kind of made an edgelordy type skull on it with a kind of like a screaming open mouth, which actually kind of looks like almost like a bat symbol a little bit. I don't know, maybe I'm just going crazy, but it looks like there's an ear there and an ear there, and those are the wings. That's all I see sometimes. Maybe I shared the glass for somebody else. But I also used to call him Pumpkinhead when I was when I first played Reach. I was like, oh, good old Emile, Pumpkinhead, because that's what it looks like. He looks like a jack-o'-lantern. But the sculpted, I want to say where the shading, paint shading is, because there's certain spots where there's paint shading, like on the back of him looks pretty good. Over here with the paint detail, the little white paint detail for his insignias look really good. He's got extra shotgun shells sculpted on his arm that looks really nice. What looks to be like a med kit is attached to his leg. I like the very Halo Reach looking armor here. It looks nice. We have really good articulation, range of motion. There's some ugly parts, but I want to say for the most part with the Reach figures, it does hide kind of that ugly, weird articulation in the legs, which we'll get to. But as far as his articulation does go, his head can swivel at a full 360 rotation if he needed to. His head can look up about this far, and I'm kind of pushing it. He's got a collar piece that kind of gets in the way of the sculpt, or the way of the articulation because of the sculpt. So there's that, and then he can look down about that far. And then he can't really pivot side to side. A little bit, I guess. A little jiggle, a little bobblehead-ish. Let's see if he's got some job turkeys. Oh, we got a little turkey up in here. Arms go up about that far. They go down. And the other side can go up as well. And they can go down as well. And they can swivel full 360 rotation if you need them to. Our bicep swivel, we do have a double jointed elbow, which with mine I'm trying to be careful with because of this gapping. I feel like the forearm's gonna pop right off the socket, but it is double jointed. I'm gonna use the other wrist just because I don't want this wrist to fall off, which is a shame because it kind of is annoying. Swivel at the wrist, we do have a lateral hinge joint on both sides, so no vertical, unfortunately. We do have splits right here. You can do the splits about that far, and you don't really need, I mean, you don't really need these guys to do crazy splits, but this is, I think, enough. I think that's enough where you can still get a decent kick in. And then we have a upper thigh swivel, which is very hindered due to his armor kind of hitting his rear end. And then we have a double jointed knee right there. Okay, that's pretty cool. And let's get that straight again. That's perfectly straight. And then we do have a pointy toe, pointy heely. We do have an ankle pivot, and we have toe articulation as well. So if you want to get him into like crouching poses, you can. And let's just show that off as much as we possibly can here. Right. And he can use that toe articulation. Like I said, there's toe articulation right there being used, and he's balancing all on his own. I'm not touching anything or moving anything like that, and it looks great. So, I mean, very simple to do. He can crouch. He can do weird pooping poses if you want him to. Teabagging poses. I'm sure there's a lot of that going on with these figures just because of the Halo community. Like I say, he does come with a pistol, and he comes with a shotty. And this is pretty much like always reminded me of just, you know, being a meal shotty, but obviously you could use it throughout the Halo universe. So, okay, next up we've got Cat. Now, Cat came with a maskless head. I'm not going to be doing those maskless heads, A, because they're in storage, and B, they don't really look all that great. I'm going to be honest with you. The heads look entirely too big per the body. Like, they actually look larger than the helmet, almost as large or as large as the helmets. So then when you put the helmeted head on, you're like, how does her head fit in this helmet? It doesn't add up. So I'm just going to go with the helmeted head, which I think is a little bit more iconic anyway. And you already know this is Cat, A, by her rifle, and B, by her cybernetics, which are her arms and such. And you could just see the womanly figure in the body. So I think she still looks really good. She kind of peg warmed for a hot minute, but I'm kind of going in order of release here. I still liked the look of the figure. I feel like not a lot of people know who Cat is. Maybe not a lot of people played Halo Reach. Same kind of peg system here that you could peg. I think actually her peg doesn't. I don't know if her peg comes out. I don't think it does. So her peg's kind of stationary. Maybe it does come out. Maybe mine's just frozen, but it doesn't look like it comes out. The one on her leg does switch. Obviously, she's got the med kit on this leg. She's a lot skinnier, obviously, especially in the arm here, seeing as she lost an arm and had to have a cybernetic arm implanted. I like the blues. The blue, for some reason, blue, whenever it's some sort of sci-fi character, it just really pops more for me, especially when it has to do with like cybernetics and stuff like that. Her hands are a little bit dainty for my liking, but she's supposed to be a smaller based character, so there's that. You can actually see kind of her womanly figure, her hip bones and stuff like that, per the armor. No, that's not her actual hip bone, but that's just per her armor, to kind of fit the womanly figure in there. And it makes it look really unique. We've got some paint shading going throughout the legs, kind of through the thigh right here, down to the calf armor right here. It looks really good. And there's actually a lot more paint detail going throughout her than there was Emile, I want to say. Even on the back, there's spare no expense with more paint detail here, including on the mask. There's a lot of silver kind of dry brushing going throughout to make it look like she's really been through battles. And she's got wear and tear going throughout all of her chest portions here, even her little kind of armor, or her shoulder armor right there for her cybernetic. Same thing over here on this side. It kind of travels all the way down the arm, which looks really good. Very well done figure. A very, I want to say, almost underrated figure, because I as far as she's concerned, I want to say she's not talked about all that much. And she did peg warm And just because a figure does peg warm does not mean that that figure is a bad figure. We do have like I said, the permanent peg right here. And then the peg hole on here, you can just peg her. If you want to just have her in storage mode, you can peg that right to her back. And now she looks like she's just kind of, maybe she's directing the rest of the team. Hey, we shouldn't attack them from here. We should attack them from over there. Or she's just talking to somebody, anything, some sort of neutral stance. You really do have to kind of get that peg in there, kind of work it in there for it to stay. But I don't know. I like neutral stances just as much as I love action poses. Nice neutral team looking stance is always a pleasant stance to have. But she has really good articulation, range of motion, stuff like that. As far as that goes, her head can swivel at a full 360 rotation. Her head can look up a lot better than Emile just because she's got a little bit more movement in the head, and there's better fitment as far as the sculpt. Her head can look down a little bit better than Emile's as well. Her head can pivot, not as good as Emile's, but it's a little bit bobbleheadish. So she's got Jive Turkey. We got a little turkey up in here. Arm goes up about that far, and I'll do the other arm as well. You get a little bit more range of motion out of this arm than you do the other one. Arm goes down, and we do have butterfly joints. The same thing goes for Emile. His were really frozen, though. Hers are pretty fluid. Now, she does not have a butterfly joint on this side. That is something to note. It looks like there is, but there is not. At least mine is completely frozen if there is one on someone else's. But she has the butterfly joint on this side, and it kind of ratchets a little bit. And this just popped out of her leg. Okay. That does happen. All right, there we go. I'm almost to the point where I might glue these in and just leave them. She has a bicep swivel on this side, and on this side she has a elbow swivel at the cybernetic. So a little bit different. She is asymmetrical, so does have a double jointed elbow, which can really get a nice double joint right there. She does have a swivel at the wrist and a lateral movement. Same thing goes for this side, swivel and her lateral. She does have a swivel at the torso, upper torso, and I don't think I went through Emile's upper torso. My bad. She can crunch. Now, this is where they're really limited. Where you expect them to be super posable, crunching forward is just abysmal. It's horrible. Pivoting side to side is nice. Even swiveling because of the sculpt is just abysmal. Crunching back looks very awkward, but she can crunch back. I just kind of leave her neutral, man. Legs can go forward, legs can go back about not really that far. Upper thigh swivel. She has a double jointed knee, and you can see what these knees look like when you bend them. They don't look that purty. But she can pointy toe, not that great. Pointy heel, a little bit better. She does have ankle pivot, and she does have toe articulation, which her toe articulation is a little bit more limited than Emile's as well. Let me just bring in Emile really quick just to kind of go over his upper torso articulation. Now, he is very limited. He's way more limited. This is all you get out of him. And that's it. Now, with her holding this this rifle, what you kind of want to do is you kind of want to, I don't know, personally what I do is her hands are pretty easy to work with, but you really want to sneak that index finger into that trigger guard and then kind of pop it up and over the shoulder, and then hope that trigger finger up, and it just popped out. Kind of have to work that in, kind of like it's like sliding something in like a glove, and then grab this arm and then have that right there, and then everything should balance decently. Like I said, she is kind of dainty. You could give her a totally different rifle. Personally, I think this is a little bit more iconic for her, just so she differentiates from the team as well. Looking down the sights is tough, especially with his hand constantly popping out, and she can't fully get the, I don't know, I guess, grip that she needs for the rifle to look natural. Like, it's almost like she's got to look through it like that. And let's get that thumb in there. There's just a little bit more warts on her than some of the others as far as looking like a natural hero here. She's kind of just holding this awkwardly, and it looks bad. And like I said, the more I have to keep working with it, the more I just kind of leave her in a relaxed pose. That's why I call these figures almost like the relaxed posed figures, because they're not as much fun as they look. And that's really the issue I keep coming across with these figures. It's almost like they're statuesque figures at certain points with all of this articulation available. But that is Cat. Good, I want to say good range of motion, decent articulation at certain points. Like the knees are still really ugly. But this is one case where I don't mind the toe articulation. It actually doesn't bother me. The aesthetic, she looks great. She looks like she popped right out of the video game. She doesn't hold the gun all that fun in a really fun, creative way. She can't really one-hand the rifle either. If you even wanted to have her do that, it'll fall right out of her hand. It really will. It's like the weight of the gun is too much for her cybernetic little dainty arm. So, okay, next up we've got Noble Six here, I guess the main character of the story. And this is essentially us kind of working our way through the story. I want to say he's very plain as far as his design goes. He just kind of looks like a backup character kind of, but you know, the design, as simplistic as it is, has kind of grown on me. Like I said, each visor of them kind of looks a lot different, and each helmet itself is different. Noble Six is supposed to be the elite of the elite. That's why they kind of bring him in, and he joins the team. He does have his kind of very nice little sheen to him as far as extra paint detail goes, kind of very similar to Cat. I want to say they kind of mixed it in very well. It almost gives a nice shine on certain areas, like when you turn him in certain lighting. You can see the paint detail going throughout the knife, which is removable right here. It is a little bit loose for my liking, but it does stay in enough where if you give it the shake test, it's not popping out. Paint detail going throughout the arm here, and the legs, front and back, and the sides. So, you know, yet again, spare no expense with paint detail, and that's a good thing with them. The paint detail on them, they don't just look like big pieces, big chunks of plastic. I will say this: there's something weird about him. Like his thigh keeps like rubbing up against his butt, and it kind of keeps pushing him forward a little bit, which is a little annoying. So he keeps wanting to do this thing. And you kind of have to fight that a little bit and then use those knee joints to kind of keep them upright. This is the same kind of issue that I had with the Marvel Legends Blade action figure from Hasbro that they released, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago. He was a frustrating one, indeed. It was kind of doing the same thing where like the sculpt of his thigh, the back of his thigh would hit his buttocks, and it kept pushing him forward, so you'd want to lean forward. You kind of had to work with his knees to kind of get him neutral stanced. It's an annoying thing. I hate it, and especially for a character that I was really looking forward to, and one I actually do enjoy as far as Noble Six does go. He doesn't talk all that much, but he is one of the elite as far as I'm concerned with most Halo characters. Not some people would put him on Master Chief's level, depending, because he does take out a lot of characters, but a lot of that I feel like is due to us playing as the character. Anyway, I digress. The figure itself has, like I said, paint detail going throughout the head, nice silver kind of metallic sheen going throughout the chest, wherever you see little doodads going on, like little blue pieces of his tech, even on his arm right here, and on the other side, on his thigh right here and over here. So it looks really good. He comes with his rifle, and he does come with his pistol, which is right here. Same kind of issues. He does have two sides where you can pop either side out. If you want to make him a lefty or a righty, whatever you so choose, you can. I want to say if you flip this around, you're losing a lot of paint detail. It's just kind of like a black plastic. You can see it there. But it will hold the pistol, and you'll obviously have to hold this pistol backwards here as well, because there's only one hole on one side. So there's also that to come into play as far as, you know, sacrifices being made as far as aesthetics go for the design. Like I said, I just kind of put these in a bag and save them for something else. As far as his articulation does go, we've got a head swivel right here, and I'm just trying to show you each one's articulation range of motion. He can't really do a full 360 going this way. He can, I don't even know if he can do it the other way, because it's just going to bump into the knife sheath here. So he's a little bit more limited. He does have a hinge joint in the head, and it's really limited just due to the sculpting of the helmet hitting the back of the collar. So he can only look, I want to say that's neutral, one click back. That's about it. That's all you're getting. Looking down is halfway decent. He can look down at somebody enough, I guess. If you use that torso articulation, you can look a little bit further down. Let's see if he can't really, no bobblehead, no jiggles in the head, and we have such a little turkey. It's a whoo! That's it. Arms go up about that far, down, full 360 rotation in the arm. We do kind of have no, I don't think we do have a butterfly. Do we have a butterfly joint here? If they are there, I don't think they are. It's so frozen, you can't do anything with it. Bicep swivel is there, and you can get the arm up and do that swivel at the peg portion, or you can do it separately here if you hold that ball joint. You do have a double jointed elbow right here, and we have a swivel at the wrist. We have a lateral hinge joint on both sides as well. No pistol, no vertical hinge joint. He can swivel about this far. It's very limited. Let me just get his arms up and show you. It's super limited. You can look up and back. As you can see, the torso did disconnect. Now, I have seen some people take a Dremel to this area right here. I'm not recommending you do that, but I'm just telling you what I've seen. You can take a Dremel here and kind of Dremel this out a little bit further, and then he'll be able to crunch way forward. So the big hinderment of these figures is this whole torso piece, this whole entire thing. You can actually go a little bit further in on each side as well. Try not to go too far, because then you don't want to have a figure that's flopping all over the place. But if you do want more of a crunch forward than just what you just saw there, that's pretty much it, forward and back. If you go too far back, he's going to pop the torso off. No waist swivel or anything like that. That's the other kind of crux. He does the best splits out of anyone so far, though. Upper thigh swivel. You can't really get the legs to go back. I've already explained that. He does have a double jointed knee. And you can pointy toe, pointy heely, ankle pivot. There's the foot articulation as well, toe articulation, whatever you want to call it. No boot swivel or anything like that, but we already knew that. So that is pretty much Noble 6. I still don't like any of their weapons. Their weapons are great looking, great to look at, but this Noble 6, I had to go through hell just to try and get him to hold his weapon correctly because of the amount of rubbery plastic that they used for these weapons, which I understand for durability's sake. You want to have like more of a pliable plastic for weaponry, because you don't want to make them too hard That's kind of the major gripe I have with Valaverse, is that their rifles and such are made a little bit too of a hard plastic, and they snap very easily. Not NECA easy, but easy enough. But I want to say you can still get him into tons of different, like, neutral poses. You can get him into dynamic poses too. He's just a little bit more limited just because of the upper torso piece, and then these stupid thighs hitting the back of the rear end, and you kind of have to get him a little bit crouched here, just a tad crouched, to make him look a little bit more neutral. But he looks ready stanced, and he looks pretty decent. You can get him kind of shooting off the hip, or you can get him looking down the sights like you're supposed to. That's where I still think these figures are quite frustrating to like, is that they just haven't really progressed the line too much, and maybe a lot of people have dropped the line from collecting them. While I kind of missed out on a lot of the McFarlane figures, this has kind of been the line for me, even with its flaws, where I get the characters that I really do want. I will cherry pick here and there, but for the most part, I do love me some Halo. It is a very enjoyable game, and I do like a lot of the unique characters that comes out of it. So, but that is Noble 6. We've got June here. Now, June took me a while to actually get. That's kind of why I made this video so late, and I kind of waited for the whole team to be released and such. Quite possibly, June is the only survivor from Halo Reach, the team Noble team. You don't really see him die. He kind of just scurries off. I think he actually gets called to another mission, but he's very unique looking. I love me some snipers. You guys all know that. But his sniper rifle, I still cannot get this thing to look right. I've used hot water. I've used a heat gun. It just wants to go this way. It just keeps wanting to bend that way. So I don't know. I'll have to figure out something else to do. I hate the way this looks, because I want him to look official, and I just want this to go that way a little bit, just so I can line it up properly, and like the nose. It just looks like a big floppy, ugh. Like, I like the design of it from the game. I just don't like the execution as far as this goes. Now, this should have been a harder plastic. This is one case where I wouldn't have minded a harder plastic, just so you don't have this mess, especially for a sniper rifle. Comes with all the same extra hands that everybody else does. I'm sure you guys can Google all that fun stuff. I'm not going to go through bins and look for all these extra hands and such. He did come with an extra head as well, an unmasked head. So there's that, and his head was huge. Like, I'm talking huge. It looked like a friggin' tumor on his shoulders. It was so big, especially compared to the masked head, which the masked head is much smaller than his unmasked head. So it just looks awkward, like I said, and a lot of the faces don't look all that great, I'm going to be honest with you. But like I said, with the helmet on, they look pretty official. He does kind of have a little bit of peanut head syndrome, but that was kind of June's look. He does have the med pack on this side and the pistol. Actually, I still have him holding his pistol just because it hasn't popped out of his leg yet. We don't have a back peg for him for a pistol. So, because he's got his kind of like, I guess you could call this a quasi-futuristic ghillie suit. He does have a knife and a knife sheath on his arm, and it is removable. It does not fall out. Let's get the shake test. Not falling out. Good. His visor is a little bit better than Noble 6's just because it does reflect actual light, and you can see that. The detail right here, as far as he's got like different rounds on his arms, it looks really good. I like that quite a bit. I like the blue, kind of stands out. The blue and white stripe, going across his arm. The white stripe going across his leg here. I like the white stripe for the pistol as well. That's very nicely done. Some of the paint shading kind of vanished when we get to some of the later characters. There's still a little bit of it in the legs here, like some some like metallic gray dry brushing, but he's rather clean. He is very clean, especially for a sniper that's rolling around in mud and gunk and, you know, going to be prone a lot. I would assume that he would be a little bit more dirtied up, which means I might have to do a little bit of dry brushing myself, which I have been kind of trying to get better at that. But this could definitely use some paint detail throughout his whole kind of, I'll just call it ghillie suit. I just want this to have a little bit of black paint detail going through. It just looks like a big glob of green, which is unfortunate. I do like his little pack right here on his back. It has his like scout pack on his back. That looks pretty cool. I think he's got everything he needs. He's got his pistol. He's got his knife. He's got his scout pack. He's got his camouflage ghillie suit, whatever you want to call it. He's got his rifle. It is here. It does have a bipod. This bipod is not really that fun. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It is two separate pieces, so when this swivels, it will move that. But as long as you hold it and move that up, it will move on its own. So it'll move out of the way. It doesn't really, I mean, these don't really stand all that well because it's a daintier plastic. It just wants to keep falling over. You kind of actually have to see how ugly that is, how chintzy this rubbery plastic is. Let me get that out of there. You kind of have to spread these out a little bit more like this, and you'll see the feet are even at an angle, and you kind of want to almost just use the pliableness of the plastic to kind of get that to sit the way you want, and then see how it's still moving. The legs are moving inward towards each other. It'll stay until those legs kind of meet each other, and then it'll flop over again. And it will happen. Trust me, it will. Because I've even had him displayed with his rifle sitting like this, and then it just falls right off the shelf and rolls off. Like I said, this is the warping I'm talking about with most guns. This is awful. And it's very annoying to have to deal with this constantly. It just takes away from the kind of cool factor of the rifle when you have to deal with this. So that is a thing. It does come with a peg hole right there, so you can peg that into his leg if you want to. Like I said, I don't see any pegs anywhere else as far as back pegs or anything like that. I don't think for the most part this is removable, nor is that. So he kind of just has to hold his rifle, which I'm fine with. I don't have an issue with that. Or I guess you could have him hold the top part of the handle for the rifle like this if you wanted to. It just falls out of his hand. So you might have to use the gripping hands instead of the trigger pointing fingers. Still don't know why they went with these straight fingers for triggers. It's so weird. It's like the weirdest design for hands I've ever seen. I just keep wanting to work that finger in, and then he holds it a little bit more securely. It's super annoying that they did this. It's like, what were they thinking doing that? Still baffles me, but he can't hold it. You might have to work with June a little bit more than some of the other guys and girl to kind of get them. Same thing with Kat, but once he actually gets it in, Kat kind of drops hers a little bit. You can get that in there. You can have him neutral pose it, but then again, we don't have a pistol grip. So you want to just kind of try and work this in like that. And then, yeah, this just looks, it doesn't look that fun, I'm telling you. Plus the rifle is just so warped. It's so bad. I hate this plastic. Why did they use this? It's so bad. And like his looks like one of those cartoons when someone bends a rifle barrel and it would just like, it looks like it's just drooping. So I'm definitely not a fan of this plastic at all for the rifles. I can't stand them. Let's just go through articulation really quick. His head can swivel at a full 360. No, it actually can't. Yeah, well, if you pop it off, you can. So it's very limited going to here, and then the head will start to want to pop off. So cannot do a full 360. Looking prone and doing sniper poses, good luck with that. You're going to hit the back of this, and you can't really get him to look up, which if any character needed to look way up, it's him. And they couldn't do it. Head looks down. No pivot side to side. He's even more hindered than Noble 6. He can swivel, and that's about it. Let's see if we've got jive turkey. We don't even have any turkeys here. Arms go up about that far. Arm goes up that far, and that's about it for this side just because of the knife sheath, but he can go way up on the other side. Arm goes down. No butterfly joint. He does have a bicep swivel. A double jointed elbow, which is kind of limited. He's actually one of the more limited figures. Especially the torso, and that's due to a lot of plastic hitting and rubbing right here. He can't really do much in his torso. I'm going to be honest with you, this is one of the least fun figures in the line. As far as fun factor goes. Legs can go out, do splits pretty good. Leg can go forward and back a little bit. Upper thigh swivel. A double jointed knee, which does not look good from the side. Is a little bit better hidden just because of this big plate armor for his knee. But he can point the toe very well. He can point the heel very well. And he does have ankle pivot and that toe articulation. And that is pretty much it for Juniper here. Good old June. All right, next up we've got George. And when they announced George, I was like, oh, he might be my favorite figure in the line. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, there's guys and girls. There's issues with him too. So I'm just going to show you right now, and hopefully it shows up on camera. I put his torso back. And he's drooping. And he's still drooping. And he's still drooping. He does not, his torso will not stay back and up. It just will not stay upright. Top of that, his backpack, which is a removable piece, does come off. Gets in the way of him kind of keeping his torso up. He is very, very much so top heavy. And there he goes drooping again. And he's drooping. Droopy D. Instead of calling him George, I should call him Droopy. But if you take that off and you take his big old sledgehammer, that's what I used to call it, then he will hold the pose. He will absolutely hold that pose where you need him to. It's just the weight of the backpack and then the weight of this plastic, this big, huge, solid chunk of rubbery plastic, which the barrel doesn't have really any, well, now I say that, the muzzle was kind of off and to the right there. I want to say this is the straightest I've seen a weapon. It comes straight out of package. We'll get to that in a second. His size, he's much larger than the rest of the gang, which I'll just bring in Noble 6 really quick. And you can see right there, he is much larger than everybody else, and he should be. He does not come with an unmasked head, which if one character should have came with an unmasked head, it should have been George. George has, I want to say, the most scenes with an unmasked head, or with his mask off, or his helmet. I keep saying mask. His helmet off. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, I understand, like, okay, he's got a removable backpack. He's got a little bit more plastic, and he's larger of a character. But come on, man. Like, are we going to get a George head? And I know I said, like, oh, hey, most of the heads kind of suck anyways, and the paint detail's not that great on the head to begin with. But still, like, I would have liked some sort of effort towards George's head. So at least I have that option to say no or not. But I don't. So, but I am also happy to at least have George, because he's one of my favorite character designs as far as the design goes. I love him. He's big, he's bulky, he's a bruiser. I feel like if I was a Halo Spartan, I would probably be around George's type. I'd be the big, bruising, heavy gunner type guy. But he does look good. Like I said, aesthetically, he looks fantastic. He's fun to look at and kind of just pose and neutral. And even if you get him into a big, heavy duty kind of, burly, heavy hitter power stance or something like that. Here we go. There's a decent stance right there. And that looks great. And then when you realize what's happening here, like he's resting his arm on his leg and, his torso, you got to kind of tilt it backwards to kind of, balance the figure itself so he doesn't go toppling over. And the backpack has to be on, obviously, to kind of counterweight the front end weight of the gun. So, I mean, they did think of some balancing issues here, but maybe they should have dropped the weight and made this a hollow plastic for the gun, because the repeater is so heavy. It's throwing the whole balance of the figure off. It's causing his torso articulation to be irrelevant. He does have issues, but then again, just looking at him, he looks great. The visor looks beautifully reflective. He might have one of the better visors out of the figures in these, in the team. The unique sculpt detail of his shoulder armor is there. He's a character even in the game where I was like, George, you could totally just jump out and save yourself. You didn't have to stay back. Like, you didn't have to die. Like, I don't know. Spoiler alert. But the back of even the backpack detail, if I take this off really quick, the backpack detail is pretty decently done with a very simple design again. We do even have some insignia here, and here. Two kind of little insignias right there. Different paint for the gray pieces are all painted on there. We even have some paint shading going throughout there. You can kind of see it in the reflective light. It is there. You might not notice it when you're looking straight on like this, but as soon as you kind of turn, you can see the reflectiveness of that metallic paint going throughout. It shows off that wear and tear, especially in certain light. So that's very welcomed. I like that. It's subtle, but it works. We've got this huge, beautiful collar piece right here that's very unique for George as well. As far as George's articulation does go, his head can swivel back and forth about that far. Cannot do a full 360 rotation. He can look up about this far, and that's about it. He can look up and down like that, and it's very limited. If you want to have him look down more, you can push it a little bit more and kind of use that torso to kind of have him looking further down. That's neutral looking down. So arms can go up about that far. And I gotta say, he's got better T-pose than most figures, even with his big bulky armor. Arms go down, no bicep swivel there, butterfly joint there. He does have a bicep swivel though. And he does have a double jointed elbow, which isn't really existent. It is there technically, but there's no way you're going to be able to move this piece right here. It's essentially a glorified single jointed elbow is what that is. He has a swivel at the wrist. He has a lateral hinge joint, pivot side to side, swivels decently. He can crunch forward. I want to say some out of the best. He might be one of the best that can crunch forward. He can do the splits. Oh, not that well, but he can go about here. I mean, that's better than some Spider-Man figures from Hasbro. Yeah, I went there. Legs go back a little bit, not too much. Upper thigh swivel, a double jointed knee right there. He does point the toe very nicely. He can point the heel, and he does have toe articulation. So it is there. And the major reason why I just don't like toe articulation, I usually try to reiterate this so people don't misunderstand why I don't like it. Toe articulation does not age well. It just does not. It's a fact. Look at any old Marvel Legends and most old Toy Biz Marvel Legends, the toe articulation causes the figure to just topple forward. So I'm glad to have most of my toe articulation Spartan collection figures that have really nice tight joints, so I don't have to worry about it too much, but in the future, it's probably going to happen. So, but George with his backpack on. Now, here's his backpack on. It does peg on decently. Let's give it the shake test. It's not coming off. So it's halfway decent. I would have liked it if these pegs were a little bit deeper into the back, but it's not the end of the world. All right, and last up we've got Carter. And Carter, unfortunately, also no unmasked head. I'm half wondering if they just kind of gave up on the masked heads after June's head looking so huge and his helmeted head looking so teeny, and there's no way that head would fit into the helmet, but I don't know. I kind of was expecting him to have a unmasked head as well. He's the leader of the group of Noble Team, and Carter kind of goes out like a serious boss, and you would kind of hope that they would have let you know, like, hey, here's an unmasked head for you guys to kind of celebrate the leader of the team, but they don't do that. He has very tight joints on him, and I mean, he is relatively brand new, so that I can kind of understand. So is George as well. George's joints are a little bit more fluid than Carter's, but I still want to say it's nice and tight, ratcheted at certain points, so that's good. It's a lot better as far as the Sentinel goes from, that good old HasLab. That's so reliable. Maybe it's just the Marvel Legends team. I don't know. But I like Carter's look. His aesthetic looks very nice. Here he is up close and personal. Very nicely done. He's got the pouches up front just like Carter had. The removable knife as well. So there's the knife. Goes back into the sheath as well. Same kind of paint shading going throughout the body. It's a little bit more subtle on Carter than some of the others, which is kind of surprising. It's still there, don't get me wrong, it's definitely still there, but it's very limited as opposed to like Noble 6, Cat, Emile, and George even. He's got his med pack on the back of him. He has a shoulder armor right here, shoulder armor over there. I love the uniqueness of the shoulder armor kind of being asymmetrical and kind of matching up. I love that about him. He does have the thigh pegs. You can depeg that side and this side and flip it around and put the holster in. That's kind of why I have him holding his pistol, because I don't really have too many people holding the pistols. Like I said, I usually put them in the bin of stuff, and it just sits in the bin. But this, I thought, you know what, just let's switch it up. He's the leader. Why not have him holding both in a neutral pose, and he can do that. The rifle itself, it was a little bit warped in package. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but he does come with his rifle right here. This is my least favorite of the rifles in the game, just because I think it shoots as only like a single or a burst, and I'm just not into this. It's either full auto or single for me, but that's just me. He does have a peg right here, so if you want to peg the rifle onto his back, there's the peg right there. Let's see if it will peg in. I know some of these newer pegs on the newer figures, they're like weird. They're like huge and bulky and annoying as hell to try and get them pegged in. And they're also like a lighter or more of a pliable plastic. And they'll stay in to a certain degree and then pop out. Like if I push on that, that's going to, maybe I remedied that. No, it still pops out. And then it kind of bends the peg down. It's kind of annoying. So this is why I always just have their weapons in their hands, because their storage kind of sucks. They still can't get the weapon storage for Halo figures right. This peg system just doesn't work well. As far as his articulation does go, his head can swivel at a full 360. No, it can't. It cannot. Sorry, I lied. I keep saying full 360, but it can't. Not that you need it to, but it just can't. I'm just letting you know. It keeps bumping the knife sheath right there. The head can look back. I want to say one of the best as far as that goes is on a ratchet joint, a ratchet hinge. Can look down about that far, and like I said, you can get the torso to look downward a little bit more, and his torso popped off. It just happens. Like I said, yet again, this is the culprit right here, getting in the way. When will they learn? The head can go back. It can't. No pivot side to side, and no turkeys on Mr. Turkey himself. I'm just kidding. Arms go up, and they are limited even with the pliableness of his armor. It's just not wanting to go. The other side can go, though, a little bit too. Very limited with Carter in the arms. He's one of the most limited, I want to say. There's a little, and I don't think there is a butterfly joint there. It's just kind of the way the arm's moving, giving it the look of a butterfly, but no butterfly. It does have a bicep swivel. It's very limited just because of the way the shoulder is. So I'll go on this side and kind of show it off. It is there, though. He does have a double jointed elbow, which is also quite limited. He is very limited. He does have a swivel at the diaphragm joint. He can kind of pivot a little bit. It's just a jiggle, really. He can swivel. He can crunch forward about that far. He can crunch back, and then not really much at all until it pops off. His legs go out about this far. My dogs are barking, I know. Legs go forward, back, not that great. Double jointed knee on Carter, and it definitely does not look that nice. We got a pointy toe, pointy heel. Really good job on the pointy toe, pointy heel, and then toe articulation, which is right there. So, I mean, he's definitely got his warts too, as much as I like his aesthetic and his look, and I love the reflectiveness, goldness of his visor. There's a lot of issues here with him as well. If McFarlane ever gets the rights to these again and he makes them just like he does the multiverse ones and makes them that kind of scale, like, I feel like that's the next step for Halo figures. They need to go back to McFarlane, and they need to be this height or a little bit taller and just go nuts with the sculpt and detail. And while there is good sculpt here and good detail here, and the stance of these things and just the aesthetic of them, they look phenomenal. They just don't articulate well. All right, so for my final thoughts on the Halo Reach team, it's mixed, man. I want to say, I don't know, one thumb up and one thumb down. Thumb down for specific things. Articulation, range of motion, not necessarily the greatest. I'm just being honest with you. Fun factor, it's a mixed bag. They're not as fun. Playing with them, posing them isn't that great. Aesthetically, they're fantastic. I think I love them aesthetically. They're almost staction figures at certain points. Like, you can get them into great dynamic poses, but then the head won't go where you want it to. Or the arms are too loose. Or certain things that have happened with other figures, not these specific ones. Or the fingers won't stay in the triggers. Or, it's just like, ugh. It's like you're almost there, and you almost had it, and then you drop the ball, or you're kind of like Kevin in The Office. Like, you make this great, amazing chili, and then you walk in with your chili, and you spill it all over the floor. It's like you almost had it. You got it all the way to work, and you almost got people to try it, and then you spilled it all over the ground, and you're fumbling in it. You almost had it, Jazzwares. You're so close. And I feel like if McFarlane gets the rights to this again, damn, it's going to be phenomenal. I don't care how many McFarlane haters are out there. We all know it would be phenomenal. If we could get this scale, I think this is a perfect scale for them. Get this scale to a T. I think they would knock it out of the park. I believe in Godfather Todd, the Todd father. But I do enjoy these figures to a certain degree. To the degree of where I went out of my way to actually get them, whether in store or had to pre-order them online through GameStop. I'm glad we at least got this team. I don't know if we're going to finish off the rest of the teams or if we're going to continue to get more. I know they're still making more figures. I don't know if this line is necessarily on life support. Maybe it is, but I hope we get some more characters. And I start hoping that we get like some, I don't know, ODSTs. I want some of those. Just some more other types of characters besides just Spartans. Like, we already got an Arbiter. Let's get some more. Let's get some Brutes and some stuff like that. Like, that's stuff I want to see as well to go along with our Spartans, especially at this scale. Like a Brute, could you imagine? He'd be like friggin' like up to here. It'd be crazy. But so that's pretty much it for me. I don't know. I just wanted to like do this quick review, overview, whatever you want to call this. I don't even know what this is, but a video about Halo, the Spartan collection. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you didn't think I was being too harsh, because I do still enjoy these figures. Don't get me wrong. Like, I still do love them. They're just a frustrating love. You know, it's a frustrating love. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.